We talk about the fans and pre-show rituals. We've got Derry Grehan, Honeymoon Suite, as our special guest. This is part 4, I think, of our interview. We talk about pre-show rituals in this one and any fan stories that may be kind of interesting. I ask every artist this because sometimes you just get great stories. Guitarist for Honeymoon Suite on Rock History Canada. Through the years, you must get people coming up to you and saying, "Hey, Derry, here's my CDR. Back in the old days, here's my cassette." How do you handle people? And if someone, can you be honest with someone if someone says, "Hey, my Aunt Betsy says I'm really good"? Well, how do you handle fans coming up to you and asking for opinions?
Opinions on their music? Well, they don't really come up, and they might hand me, those days of handing somebody a cassette or a CD are almost long gone. It's like, can I send you a file now? Can I send you a link to my music? So then I'll go, sure, and I'll check it out later. Or people will send me sometimes on they'll DM me or something and check out my band. I either won't have time to listen to it, or if I do and it's not very good, I'll just not respond. Or if it's somebody that I respect, I'll say, "Hey, cool, good luck with that." But I'm never a dick about it. There's no reason to be like that. I'll just be graceful about it and say, this isn't for me, man, but good luck with it, right?
Has there been anything crazy that a fan, and I bet you there's a few, what's the craziest thing a fan's ever done to you?
Well, they threw a pocket knife and hit me in the head with it.
Closed, right?
Yeah, it was closed, fortunately, but it was still heavy. It was when we were out with ZZ Top. We were opening for them, and we were at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and we were halfway through What Does It Take? And I just put my head down for a second, and this thing bounced off my big forehead, and shit, did that hurt. It kind of stunned me, and I don't know why I didn't walk off stage, but I kind of like fumbled through the solo, but I kept going when I should have just stopped, because somebody picked it up and brought it to me after the show, because I didn't know what hit me. And goddamn, that is, if I could find that guy, I'd kick his teeth in. You don't do that kind of shit. So that's what happens once we started touring America. We learned to keep our heads up, because sometimes beer cans and cups and stuff will come up. I mean, the bras and the underwear, that's fine. They can't hurt you. But some of these Americans were pretty rowdy, especially when you open for like ZZ Top or something. So keep your head up, because there might be a beer can coming your way. So you keep your head up and you look around, keep smiling and duck.
What's the biggest starstruck moment you've ever had personally where you go, I can't believe I'm either talking or that person's right there?
You've got to be. I'm totally a fan, and I will always be a fan. Well, I mentioned earlier meeting Eddie Van Halen, who I've loved from day one. Actually meeting him. Just guys like, there's a lot of players that I've got to meet over the last few years, like Nuno from Extreme, guys like that, Neil Sean. We've just, from doing what we do, being on tours and stuff, and finding myself in the same room as these guys and just being able to talk to them.
Does Honeymoon Suite have a pre-show ritual?
Yeah, it's called Canadian Club and Heineken. But seriously, no, we're pretty good up there. We might have a few beers after the show, but pre-show ritual is just, we do a vocal warm up in the change room. We get an acoustic and do our vocal warm up, because we don't play with tracks. If we sing out of tune, we sing out of tune. But you're hearing the real people up there, so do the vocal warm up. But most of our time before stage is just being goofballs in the change room and screwing around and being like immature and talking and clowning around with each other and not being serious about shit. So we walk on stage, we're like, it's just that we start the party in the change room and we take it on stage.
April Wine, any thoughts on April Wine? That's actually my next one. I just talked to the Henman brothers and the cousin and.
Oh, I forgot about them. Of course, April Wine. I had their first album, the one that had the picture of the album on the front.
That's the second one on record. Yeah.
Okay. when the Henman brothers were in it. And I was an April Wine fan from day one. You're right. I used to go see them play at high schools in my area. And I just thought they were a cool band. Of course, April Wine. And years later, Miles and I became very good friends because we would cross paths. We would play, our bands would play together so many times. So yeah, long history there.
You know, I always wanted Miles to do an album with you. It's so strange that that should come up. I remember thinking the way you play guitar, especially when they were harder edge, but anyway, you can do the soft stuff too. There was always a part of me that thought you and Miles could have worked together. I don't know why.
We should have. Yeah, we should have wrote together. It just never happened. But I think Miles and I could have knocked a few good rock tracks out because he came from the same kind of musical, vibe that I came from, just guitar rock. I think, yeah, well, it's not going to happen now, but yeah, we probably should have.
We're doing a special on the first album. Can you give me something else on New Girl Now, especially that one? I mean, do you remember where you were in your life when you wrote it? Did you know you had something? Because you said you came in with New Girl Now when you got into the band.
It was written when I was at college, and I was at a Fanshawe College in London, Ontario. Yeah. It was like they have a recording production course there, and I was there for a few years. And part of it was to write songs, and you could bring them in and demo them. So I remember I lived in this old house with these three guys, and one afternoon I would sit in the kitchen with my guitar when I had the house to myself, my notebook. And I remember writing it there, just the basic riff.
Did the guys hear it? Did the other guys hear it?
No, this is a few years before Honeymoon.
No, your roommates.
No, they didn't. Not that day, because I wrote it in the kitchen. And then what I would do as part of your course, you would bring it to school, bring in an original song, and get some guys together because they had a recording studio, and go in and record it. And I sang on the original demo. And it's like I was saying to them, "This is great." That's why I went to school. I said, I told my parents, I can go to school, but I can also write songs, get in the studio as part of it. So I learned, how to record and whatnot. And I could also write my own songs and bring them in. And they could be the worst songs ever, but because you're at college, nobody cares. But so New Girl Now, no, I mean, everybody kind of liked it. It was kind of a quirky song. Everybody kind of laughed at it. And then a few years later, when I got with Honeymoon Suite and we wanted to start putting original songs in the set, I played the demo for Johnny because he wanted to get some of the originals in the show because we're a cover band. He heard New Girl Now right away. He says, I can sing that. It's just, I know, I didn't know it was going to be a huge hit. You never do. And it's a lot of times it's the ones you write in 20 minutes that become the big ones you're not even thinking. So,
hey man, I remember where I was when I first heard that song. I remember where I literally, and I'd say this to maybe 5% of the artists I interview, and I interview a lot of people. I go, I know where I was. I knew when I heard that guitar, I'm going, what the hell? A JFK musical moment. There you go.
Where were you?
I'm at a radio station. I was, doing the all-night show. And there it was.
Yeah, it really, when it starts. It really has that kind of effect. I don't know, man.
When you were in college there, what was in your record collection back then?
What was I listening to? I don't know. I was always a Deep Purple fan. I was always the rock guy. When we were in this college, there's these jazz guys and these soft rock guys. And I'm like, come on, wake up, boys. I mean, I was the only one there with an SG and a Marshall amp. And I'm like, so I found a few other guys that were kindred spirits, and we started playing more rock. What was I listening to? Probably a lot of strange stuff like Kansas and progressive rock because I was in college. So I was listening to all this kind of bizarre music. I can't even remember the names of these bands.
Yeah. Kansas is one of those bands, though. They're not quite like the Jimmy Buffett or Todd Rundgren, where they have these big diehard groups of fans. But Kansas, their fans are on a different. Every band has a different vibe to who their fans are. But yeah. Kansas is another one of those because those deep lyrics,
Yeah, well, they're a progressive rock band early on, but before Carry On and Dust in the Wind. If you listen to their early albums, this is the ones when I first got turned on. Very progressive. time signatures changing all over the place. I was really into that at the time and listening to early Genesis and King Crimson and all that stuff.
I just interviewed Tom Brislin, who is the new keyboard player, and he says it was a very intimidating. He played with Yes, and he says it was very intimidating getting into that band, considering. And he's yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like musically challenging. I mean, it's thinker's music for sure.
Yeah,
that's what, because it was so challenging to listen to.
You know, Dave Betts, in the interview that I can't seem to find, but it's in this room someplace, he was saying that when he joined, just before Honeymoon Suite broke, and it's the line I always remember, he says, I was in the Welfare lineup. I said, I'm Dave Betts, I want Welfare. He said it just like that. I'm Dave Betts, I want Welfare. And he was joking around, but at the same time, he says, you never know when you're going to make it, you know, because you're in a band, it's working really well, but I got to live. And in Canada, in the 80s especially, you could go gold and ride the bus. Doug Bennett told me that years ago. God bless him.
Yeah.
You know, it was, but he had said that, and he says all of a sudden things just took off. We were in a different world.
Yeah, well, Dave had played with me. See, I met Dave when I was in college. That's how far back we go. And we played in a new wave band for a few years and cut a couple of records with them. So Dave and I had already been playing together for years. And then when I joined Honeymoon Suite, it came to a point where we had to replace our drummer. So I suggested to Johnny if we give Dave a shot. So I brought him in, and Ray and Gary came in, and it just all these things falling into place at the right time. All these players were just perfect for the gig, and the songs were right. And wow, we got so lucky.
When did you know you were okay with the band? When did you know, hey, we're going to be okay? We can make this work? At what point did you feel that?
Well, as soon as I heard Johnny sing.
Really?
Well, yeah, because I've been in other bands, and I think one of the hardest things is finding that singer.
Yeah.
You look at any successful band, they got a great singer and front man. If he's good looking, he's charismatic, that goes a long way. And I knew that I could play guitar, and I knew that I could write, keep writing songs. And if you look at any band, it's usually a singer and a guitar player, or probably two guys that are the tip of the spear, so to speak, because somebody has to set the direction and write the songs. So we started, like I said, we were a cover band. So the first thing we did was learn a whole bunch of songs. But Johnny, he could sing Billy Idol, he could sing Genesis, he could sing all these cover songs and do them really good, like in pitch and that. And I had never been in a band with somebody with a great voice like that. So as soon as I heard that, I said, we've got to take this to the next level. We got to get a deal. Yeah. I've got songs. Let's do it.
We're doing a Deep Purple special, and we've got a lot of people, musicians, and I didn't know about Deep Purple and you. You're Highway Star, a relationship with. Anyway, what's the album? See, for me, I just quoted it. I'm very generic when it comes to Deep Purple. I say Machine Head or Made in Japan. What's the album for you with Deep Purple?
Well, the first one was Machine Head, of course. When I was a kid, that Smoke on the Water.
Yeah.
And drew me in, and then I bought the album the next day and listened to every song. But I think the quintessential Purple album is Made in Japan. Back when they put out double live albums, that golden era of double live records, Grand Funk Live, and Deep Purple Made in Japan, though. I remember just listening to that over and over and looking at that picture on the front.
Yeah.
To me, that was killer. But then when Coverdale and Hughes came in the band, I loved that Deep Purple as well. As soon as I heard Burn, that record is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Second album, Big Prize. Going into that album with the success of the first one, Bruce Fairbairn producing, what was the vibe going into that album? I mean, all of a sudden, you obviously had a bigger budget. You must have, because that's kind of usually the way it works.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was Off the Road. I mean, so much success on the first record. Then, and the videos and everything, then the label is like, okay, we're kicking this into high gear. You guys have to do the sophomore follow-up or whatever you want to call it. This one has got to be really good. We're throwing all the money into it. And we interviewed a few producers, and Bruce Fairbairn's name came up because he'd done the Loverboy records and some other stuff. And he was a Canadian, and we went and had a meeting with him out west. And it just, I love the guy. I mean, just a great guy, and I had a really good feel for him. So we decided to work with him, and he just sent us off to write songs, and we went back and forth for a few months because Bruce was very much a song guy. He wouldn't take us in the studio till we had the songs written, which is a smart thing to do. So we eventually, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, we're in Little Mountain, Vancouver. Bob Rock Engineering, by the way, which is incredible. Wow. This is before he exploded. When Bruce and Bob used to work together as a team, producer and engineer. So so much talent there. So there we were. We went into the studio. We actually started in Long Island because our management thought they found the studio called the Boogie Hotel down in Long Island, New York. And it's supposed to be like, hey, Foghat recorded there, so you guys should go down there and record. So Bruce and Bob and all of us went down there to cut beds, and it was a disaster because it was in this old house, and the wiring was all shot, and Bob Rock couldn't connect anything. Like everything was just a mess electronically. He couldn't get anything to work. So after about a week, he said, screw this. I want to go back to Little Mountain, which is what we did, and just moved the whole operation back there, and it was incredible.
With Feel It Again, which Ray wrote, is that what happens? I think that's what happens sometimes when you get a hit at the time, biggest hit you had at the time, you had bigger, but that happens a lot when someone say, hey, we got this big hit. Did he want a bigger part of the pie? Or based on that, do you think he wanted to go solo or what?
Well, like I said earlier, I think he really had some problems with the management.
Right.
Because we had a pretty aggressive manager, and I'll say I had problems too. I mean, every band did. It's like all of a sudden, like when there's no money, everybody's happy. But when there's success and money, then all of a sudden you've got too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And everybody from the label to management and publishers are all telling you what they think you should do and what you have to do, and you need to do this and that. So there was a lot of like headbutting there. Management wanted, they pushed us so hard. And I think Ray just got fed up with the way he thought, it should go. And so I think that was one big reason that he left, because he couldn't stand that part of it. And I guess he thought, Feel It Again. He thought he could do, go on to bigger and better things on his own.
Yeah. Did you know that was going to be big, that song, when he brought it to the table?
No. Not really, because when Ray was a keyboard player and he didn't really sing, he just kind of brought in the half-baked, like the song. He had the kind of chords and some of the lyrics, and he would sing it kind of softly. But then he gave it to Johnny, who just belts it out, and to Bruce and to me, where we just took it from here to here. Yeah. And you have to give a lot of credit to the band and the producer putting so much into it. It wasn't a hit when he brought it in, and neither were some of my songs. But once they went through the rest of the band and the production, they became hits.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Number 3 album, Racing After Midnight. Okay, again, big producer with Ted. Were you a big Doobie Brothers Van Halen fan?
Absolutely.
Were you asking him a lot of questions? Yeah,
for sure. Well, I was into Ted. I liked Montrose.
Right.
Very early on, I was a Montrose fan.
Yeah.
Because it was like that Montrose was like the predecessor to Van Halen, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
With Sammy Hagar singing Montrose. I had those records on as a kid. So I knew of Ted Templeman then. Of course, the Doobie Brothers. And then when he did Van Halen, I liked Van Halen from day one. So what happened was, after Bruce produced The Big Prize, then Bon Jovi came into his picture, and he did Slippery, and there's no way we wanted him to do the third album, but he couldn't because he just exploded. With his success, and if we wanted to do Bruce, we would have had to wait a year or two to get him to do the Honeymoon Suite record. Although I really wanted to work with him again, but timetables being what they are, it's like the label say we can't wait 2 years for your next album. Your momentum won't be shot. So because we're on Warner's in L.A. Ted was head of A&R there at the time, too. He became interested in us. First through the Lethal Weapon thing, which actually happened before the album. That came on Ted's desk, and Ted was aware of Honeymoon Suite. And he sent the demo to me and Johnny first, before he was even going to produce the record, and said, there's this new movie coming out with Lethal Weapon, and we think we need a rock band to do it, and Johnny's got a great voice. Would you guys be interested in coming to L.A. and recording it? we're like, hell, fuck yeah, we'll do that. So we went down and met with Ted and cut the demo of Lethal Weapon. And then we started talking about the next album because Bruce was unavailable. We were looking for a producer.
Yeah.
And if you were to tell me, hey, Ted Templeman wants to do your album, I'm like, how cool is that? So that's how that went.
Wow.
Remember, if you want to support the channel, it's been a crazy time for all our channels in the last little while. And that's one of the reasons we ask for support, because YouTube's revenue lately has been insane to a point where we actually thought of quitting. So if you want to support the channel, there's a PayPal link in the description. You can join our Patreon. You'll get early access to our videos. And we have a swag store where you can buy Rock History Canada, Rock History Book, or Rock History Music t-shirts, hats, all kinds of clothing. Subscribe to our channel, share our videos, comment on them, and like them. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Canada.